Here we go. Again, this was Writer's Block. My name is Frank Cole. I'm the author of 14 traditionally published children's novels. I got my start. My first contract came through in 2008. My first book came in 2009, and I've been writing and publishing ever since. I've had a couple of years where multiple books came out, but most of the time it's usually been about one book per year since 2009. So far, everything I've written has been for children, middle grade audiences. One of my series was a little bit older, but these are my books that I've written. I wrote The Adventures of Hash Brown Winners, the 4-book series for the younger middle grade audience, very dialogue heavy in those books. I wrote the Guardians series. That's the Guardians of the Hidden Scepter, the Elijah's Fire, and the Finisher's Fury. A little bit older middle grade. Borderline YA, I would say, with just the things that happen in that series. I wrote The Afterlife Academy, The World's Greatest Adventure Machine. Those are 2 books I did with Delacorte Press, with Random House. I wrote the Potion Master series, which is a trilogy, the 2 books in the Champions Quest series. All 5 of those are with Shadow Mountain Publishing. And then my next book comes out in August. It's called The Legend of the Last Library. Again, middle grade. I love the middle grade voice. I love writing for that audience. And I've been somewhat successful in doing that. So that's who I am. And that's what I write. I really feel that one of my strengths that I focus on in my books is my dialogue. I try to create believable characters, and you can do that through your dialogue. So let's get right into it. Why is it so important? Why do editors and agents and readers put so much emphasis on dialogue? Well, it gives life to your characters. I've mentioned that already, through their voice, their motivations, and their desires. You see who they really are from the way they speak and interact with other characters. It's a proven method for resolving issues, and the lack thereof can create conflict. So when communication and dialogue is not happening in an efficient way, that creates conflict as well in your story. It creates tension, enhances action, suspense, and romance, and it humanizes every story and forms that critical connection with you, with your book and the audience. I believe more so than any other element of the book, at least for my books and writing for my audience. Dialogue really is one of those important, the most important piece for creating that human story. Matthew Kirby, the author of Icefall, The Clockwork 3, a lot of great books, said this: the best dialogue doesn't come from the author speaking through the characters, but the characters speaking for themselves. So think on that for a moment. We know how we would act in a situation. We know how we would respond. But when you're writing, it's so important to make sure that your character's voice and your character's motivations come out. So how do we do it? How do we write something? And we've all read our own work. We've read other people's work where the dialogue is not sharp, it's not crisp, it's not believable. And when that happens, we disconnect from the story. I find myself specifically, when I don't believe in the dialogue, if I'm not relating with the characters, then I disconnect. So first, you should ask yourself these questions. Why are your characters the way they are? Why are they acting this way? Why do they speak this way? What is their background, their family situation, their upbringing? All of those play an important role in understanding your character's motivations, how they speak. What significant events in the past have molded them to what they are now? So think about it. You don't have to answer all these questions in your story, but you should know them, because that could drive their actions and behaviors and their dialogue. How do they respond in different situations? When it's an action situation, or if they're embarrassed, if it's a sensitive or sad situation, how do they respond to authority, the opposite sex, to the villains in your book? When plopped into a pivotal moment, what would be the first words out of their mouths? So think about that. Take a moment to define your character in this way. Have an interview with them and answer these questions. How would they react in this situation? Because all of that drives our dialogue. I love to do the attribute test, and I've done this with all my books. But this list of attributes, there's tons of attributes you can pull from online, but this is one I just found that has a list of things that could drive your character's dialogue and their motivations. So give your character, your main character, 3 to 4 attributes to live by. Now, if you have multiple main characters or you want to do this with other characters in your book, go for it. Because if you know their attributes and what drives them, you'll understand how they talk. So some things to avoid is on-the-nose conversations. This is when 2 characters have a back and forth exchange and the dialogue has no real value. We do this a lot when we're just trying to establish an introduction to a character, or it's the beginning of a chapter and we don't know the transition on how to make it start into a new chapter. So we start off with dialogue and the dialogue has no meaning. And a lot of times you'll see characters echoing each other. So here's an example. First, casual conversations don't always work in a novel. Here's the example. Hello, Mary. Hi, Sylvia. My, that's a wonderful outfit you're wearing. Outfit? You mean this old thing? Old thing? It looks practically new. It's not new, but thank you for saying so. Not much happened in that dialogue. Nothing of value. And you'll notice that they rephrased or restated or echoed the question that was asked, dragging the conversation on. We don't learn anything about their motivation. We don't learn anything about their character, their personality, other than they seem very cardboard and flat characters. So we'll take the same. So I'm going to show you a technique called sidestepping, the art of getting to the root of the conversation. You can take that same dialogue set, alter it, and edit it and sidestep it into a more interesting conversation. So here's that same example. Hello, Mary. Sylvia, I didn't see you. My, that's a wonderful outfit you're wearing. I need a drink. Okay, so from those 4 stanzas, those 4 lines of dialogue, we learn a little bit more about Mary, and maybe about their relationship, and maybe about something that's been happening in one of their lives. And all of those things are coming out in this dialogue that was not coming out in the previous version. That's called sidestepping. And you can do this right now with your novel. If you have a block of text, of dialogue that's happening between the characters, look at it and see if every bit of that is necessary. Look and see if you need to sidestep and get to the root, to show personality, to show character. Jennifer Nielsen's a New York Times bestselling author of multiple books. She writes middle grade and some YA. She's fantastic. She said this: all dialogue should serve some purpose. It should further the plot, reveal character, or raise tension, comic or dramatic. If the author cannot explain why that particular dialogue is there, it should just be cut. And that's difficult. It's tricky to cut dialogue. We kind of cling to our writing and to things that we put down on paper. And we've grown so accustomed to seeing that deleting it takes a lot of effort. But I like to think of it as not necessarily deleting it, but sidestepping. You are taking that block of dialogue and giving it more meaning, giving it more depth. Here's some more questions you can ask yourself. What is the purpose of this dialogue exchange? Does it heighten or begin an existing conflict? If it's an argument, if it's a resolution, if it's a reveal, some sort of suspenseful piece that's happening in your story, then yeah, it has merit. Does it stimulate the reader's curiosity? Are they saying things that maybe they're questions that are going unanswered, that the reader will think, I want to keep reading because they just posed an interesting question. Does it create tension? Does it build to a climax or a turn of events in the story or a change in relationship of the speakers? And if it doesn't do some or at least one of those things, then consider cutting it.